My name's Evelyn. Been married to George for what feels like an eternity, and most of that time's been about raising our son, Jacob. From the start, we wanted nothing but the best for him. We scrimped and saved, hoping he'd grow up strong, smart, and independent. But you know what they say about best-laid plans. Jacob was a handful as a teenager, always into some mess or another. And each time he'd come home, sheepish or smirking, depending on the scrape, I'd be there, making sure it didn't break him or us. George would shake his head, saying I was too soft on him. You love him too much, Evie. You're spoiling him rotten. But I'd just laugh that off. Love doesn't spoil a person, George. It builds them up. But here we are, Jacob's 30 and still not quite built up. We paid through the nose for a good education, hoping he'd latch onto something solid, but no luck. Girls and parties caught his fancy more than any textbook or job. He'd graduated all right, but you wouldn't know it from where he's at now, job hopping like it's his career, and still relying on us to keep a roof over his head. George and I, we're not young anymore, but we're still working part-time. Every penny we make, we tuck away, thinking about a decent pension, because who knows how long we'll have to keep bailing Jacob out. We've paid off our mortgage and we pinch every penny twice, only spending on what's necessary. And Jacob? He swings by the house most nights, belly hungry and wallet empty. Hey, Mom, got anything to eat? He'd call out as soon as he stepped in, not even a how are you first. I'd always have something on the stove. Sit down, I'll fix you a plate. But listen, Jacob, you can't keep going like this. When are you going to get serious about a job? Settle down a bit? Jacob, he'd just shrug, shoveling food like he was filling holes in his life. Jobs are tough, Mom. Nothing sticks. Don't worry, something will come up. George would be at the table too, muttering into his coffee. You need to stop making it so easy for him, Edie. He's got no reason to change, does he? Not while the meals keep coming. Then one evening, Jacob came home with news. Mom, Dad, I met someone. His eyes were lit up like when he was a kid on Christmas morning. Oh? I managed, my heart doing a little dance between hope and fear. Her name's Lisa. I think she's the one. He was beaming. The day Jacob brought Lisa home to meet us, I had a gut feeling things were going to change, for better or worse. He had that look in his eyes, like he had finally figured something out. And there she was, smiling and pretty, trailing behind him like she was stepping into a whole new world. Mom, Dad, this is Lisa. Jacob introduced her with a wide grin, pushing his shoulders back like he was presenting a grand prize. Lisa reached out her hand, her grip firm and confident. It's so lovely to meet you both, she said. Her voice was smooth, almost rehearsed, but it was nice to hear someone speak so sweetly to us old folks. George, ever the watchdog, peered over his glasses at her. Hello, Lisa. Heard you're from around town. What do you do? I work at my family's store, she replied, not missing a beat. It keeps me busy, but I love the hustle. Well, that's good. Keeps you grounded, George said, trying to read between the lines. I nudged him softly, warning him with a look to keep it light. We sat down in the living room, me and George on the couch, Jacob and Lisa taking the armchairs opposite us. I wanted to keep things welcoming, but also get some real talk going. So, Lisa, I started, trying to sound casual. Jacob tells us you two met at the community center. How did that happen? Lisa laughed, a clear, ringing sound. Oh, it was at the annual charity ball. I was helping out at the ticket booth, and Jacob came up, all lost, asking for directions to the buffet. I showed him the way, and we just clicked. Jacob nodded, his face lighting up at the memory. Yeah, and I kept finding reasons to pass by the booth after that. I glanced at George, who was trying to suppress a smirk. Sounds like Jacob, he muttered under his breath. Dinner was ready, and we moved to the dining table. The chatter flowed easier there, with plates clinking and glasses being filled and refilled. Lisa seemed to ease into the conversation, talking about her dreams of maybe starting her own business someday. That's ambitious, George commented, passing the potatoes. Yeah, well, I figure you only get one shot at life, right? Might as well make it count, Lisa replied, serving herself. I liked that, her spirit. But part of me worried about what it meant for Jacob. He was never one to plan ahead, happy to drift where life took him. I looked at him, really looked, and he seemed genuinely happy. Maybe Lisa's drive would rub off on him. After dinner, while George and Jacob cleared the table, a miracle in itself, I pulled Lisa aside for a mother-to-heart. Listen, Lisa, I began, my voice low. Jacob's my only son, and I just want the best for him. He can be a bit of a handful, with his head in the clouds. Lisa nodded, her eyes softening. I know, Evelyn. He's told me a lot about how you've both supported him. Don't worry, I'm not here to take him away from that. I'm here to build with him, you know? Her words were reassuring, but still, I had to press a bit. And you think you're ready for all that comes with him? It's not always going to be easy. She squeezed my hand, her resolve clear. I'm not going anywhere, Evelyn. I'm in this for the long haul. It was what I needed to hear, but only time would tell. I hugged her, feeling a mix of relief and residual worry. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something good for my boy. A year later, Jacob and Lisa got married. It was a simple ceremony, nothing too extravagant, but filled with a lot of hope. They moved into a rented apartment not too far from us. George and I paid for their honeymoon, a little getaway to the coast, something to give them a good start. We also gave them a piece of land near us as a wedding gift. Lisa's parents, who seemed nice enough each time we'd met, agreed to pay for the construction of a house on that land for the young couple. As the months rolled on after the wedding, Lisa and Jacob's daily visits started feeling less like a family catch-up and more like a routine inspection. They'd drop by, always around mealtimes, and while I didn't mind feeding them, what's a mother for, if not to make sure her kids are fed? It started to wear on me and George. It wasn't just the eating, it was the taking. Bits and bobs from the pantry, leftovers packed up, before I could even offer. It was like our home had turned into their personal grocery store. One evening, they were at it again, rummaging through the fridge while George and I exchanged looks over the kitchen counter. I could tell George was getting fed up, his jaw set tight every time the fridge door swung open. Jacob, I finally said, a bit sharper than I'd intended. You two have got to start managing on your own a bit more. We can't keep your fridge stocked forever. Jacob, holding a Tupperware full of last night's roast, looked up, surprised. Oh, come on, Mom, it's not a big deal. We're just grabbing some bits and pieces. Saves us a stop at the store. Lisa chimed in, all smiles, like always. Yeah, Evelyn, we really appreciate it. It's just been so hectic with work and the house plans. We're stretched a bit thin. I sighed, leaning against the counter. I get it, it's tough starting out. But you've got to learn to stretch your wings. We did our bit, now it's your turn. George, ever the blunt one, dropped his bomb then. It's about respect, kids. You can't just come here and pick the place clean. What are we, a charity? Lisa's smile faltered, and Jacob's face turned a shade darker. We didn't mean anything by it, Jacob muttered, placing the Tupperware back with less gentleness than usual. That night, after they left, earlier than usual, I sat down with George, feeling a mix of guilt and relief. Did we do the right thing, George? Pushing back like that? George, who was no stranger to tough love, put his arm around me. Evie, if we don't set limits, who will? They've got to grow up sometime. Their visits stopped for a while after that conversation. It stung, sure, but maybe it was necessary. It was a quiet few months, the kind of quiet that makes you think too much. Then, one day, out of the blue, Jacob called. Mom, Lisa's pregnant. You're going to be a grandma. My heart leapt. Despite everything, this was joyous news. Oh, Jacob, that's wonderful. Congratulations. If you need anything at all, you know you can ask. True to my word, I found myself more involved than ever. Lisa needed help with cleaning their house and grocery shopping. I was more than happy to step in. "You're a lifesaver, Evelyn," Lisa would often say. "You really get it, unlike my own mom." Her words made me pause. "Lisa, maybe I should talk to your mom. Clear the air?" Lisa quickly shook her head. "No, please. That would just make things worse. Let's just leave it." When Sarah was born, my world lit up in ways I never expected. I was overjoyed and ready to spend every minute spoiling my granddaughter. But soon enough, Jacob and Lisa started leaning on me a bit too hard, turning my joy into a near full-time job. One day, not long after Sarah came home from the hospital, Jacob hit me with a question that caught me off guard. "Mom, can you watch Sarah while Lisa goes back to work? Or maybe help pay for a babysitter?" he asked, as if it was just a small favor. I was taken aback. "Why can't you two handle this on your own? You're both working, and yet somehow you're always needing help. And all those new things I see every time I come over, how do you manage to afford that stuff but not care for your own child?" Jacob didn't take that well. He shot back, "Look, if you can't help out, maybe you won't see Sarah as much. How would you like that?" His words stung. I couldn't believe he'd use Sarah as a bargaining chip. But I wasn't about to let my feelings jeopardize my relationship with my granddaughter. "Fine," I said, gritting my teeth. "I'll help. But we need to find a better long-term plan." That helping quickly turned into me watching Sarah almost every day. Lisa and Jacob would drop her off in the morning, often before I'd even had my first cup of coffee, and then pick her up just in time for her to go to bed. Before I knew it, my days revolved around Sarah's needs, from meals to playtime to naps. As Sarah grew and started school, my duties shifted from full-time caregiver to chauffeur and after-school guardian. I picked her up from school, helped with homework, and made sure she had a good dinner, things I loved doing, but it was a commitment I hadn't exactly signed up for. Jacob and Lisa, meanwhile, took to this arrangement a little too comfortably. Weekends away, evenings out, and little vacations became part of their routine, leaving Sarah with me and George. We didn't mind the time with Sarah, in fact, we treasured it. But we couldn't help feeling used. The more we gave, the more they took. George and I started noticing more and more new gadgets and clothes coming into Jacob and Lisa's home. One evening, as I handed Sarah over to Jacob after another long day, I couldn't keep my frustration bottled up any longer. "Jacob, you and Lisa seem to be living it up quite well. Fancy new watches, clothes. It's a bit much, don't you think? Meanwhile, I'm covering costs for Sarah's necessities. Doesn't seem right." Jacob was defensive, as always. "Mom, we're just trying to provide the best for our family. You want Sarah to have the best, right? Providing the best doesn't mean leaving all the responsibilities to your parents," I snapped. "You need to start taking care of your own family. It's not fair to push it all onto us." He sighed, running his hand through his hair. "We really appreciate everything you do, Mom. We'll try to do better." But better never came. George and I bought clothes and toys for Sarah, paid for her school supplies, and essentially provided for her as if she were our own child again. We loved her fiercely, but we were also exhausted, emotionally and financially. It was past midnight when the phone by my bedside rang. I grabbed it, heart racing. It was Sarah, whispering, "Grandma, I'm scared. I'm all alone at home and I can't sleep." My mind raced as I shot out of bed. "Stay on the phone with me, sweetheart," I said, quickly throwing on some clothes. George was already up, grabbing the car keys. We drove over to Jacob and Lisa's house in a hurry. Pulling up, it was dark, too quiet. My hands shook with anger and fear as we approached the door. When we got inside, Sarah ran to me, nearly knocking me over with her hug. "They went to a party," she said, her voice muffled against my coat. I called Jacob, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Where are you?" Sarah's been alone and scared. Jacob's response was slurred, dismissive. Mom, calm down. It's no big deal. We do this sometimes. She's fine. Fine? It's not fine, Jacob. You left your daughter alone at night. I shot back, my voice rising. He hung up, leaving me fuming and George pacing the living room. We decided to stay with Sarah until morning, not that we could have slept anyway. The next day, after ensuring Sarah was at school and safe, I made a decision. I couldn't let this go. I drove to the next city over to see Janet and her husband, Lisa's parents. They deserved to know what was happening under their noses. Sitting in their living room, I laid it all out. Janet, did you know Sarah was left alone last night? That Jacob and Lisa often leave her by herself? The color drained from Janet's face. What? No, we had no idea. We thought. I pressed on. And there's more. You've been sending money for private schooling and expenses, right? Well, Sarah's almost always at our house, and we've been the ones handling school fees and other costs. Janet and her husband exchanged a look of disbelief. We send them $50,000 a year for her schooling, Janet murmured, her voice tinged with shock and betrayal. They've been lying to you. They pocket the money, telling you it's for Sarah, while we provide for her. It's all been a sham, I said, my voice steady, despite the storm inside. The room was thick with tension as they processed the news. This is fraud, Evelyn. They're stealing from us, using Sarah as a pawn in their games, Janet's husband finally said, his voice hard. I nodded, resolute. We need to take action. For Sarah's sake and for our own. We can't let them continue like this. We agree, Janet said, her eyes meeting mine, a new resolve forming between us. We'll support you in whatever needs to be done. This ends now. I left their house with a heavy heart, the drive home filled with mixed emotions. Anger, betrayal, but also a grim satisfaction that we were finally going to hold Jacob and Lisa accountable. The very next morning, I made calls to both a lawyer and the local social services. The situation had gone too far. It wasn't just about money now, it was about Sarah's safety. The lawyer, a straight shooter named Bill, advised us on our options, and social services were equally concerned about the situation. They set up an immediate visit to Jacob and Lisa's house. George and I decided we needed to be there too, to face this head-on. When we arrived at Jacob's house, Lisa opened the door, her face twisted in anger. What are you doing, Evelyn? Bringing social workers here? They're asking why we leave Sarah alone. Her voice was sharp, accusing. I kept my cool, despite the heat rising in my chest. We're here for Sarah's well-being, Lisa. That's our only concern, I replied firmly. The social workers had already started their inspection and quickly noted several concerns. They pulled us aside, their faces serious. We've observed enough to draft a report on child neglect and the failure of parental duties, one of them whispered to me, holding a clipboard tightly against her chest. Lisa overheard and stepped up, her tone venomous. You have no right, Evelyn. Because of you, they're saying we might lose our daughter. You won't see her again, I'll make sure of it. Jacob, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke, his voice cold and harsh. Mom, you've really done it this time. I can't believe you'd turn on your own family like this. I'm done with you. I swallowed hard, fighting the hurt. This isn't about us, Jacob. It's about Sarah. About keeping her safe. That's when the door opened again, and in walked Janet and her husband, summoned by me for support. Lisa's face lost all color, her bravado slipping. Janet stepped forward, her voice trembling, but strong. Lisa, we know what's been going on. The money, the lies. You've been playing us all. We're here to put an end to it. Jacob and Lisa were silent now, the reality of the situation settling in. I cleared my throat loudly to capture everyone's attention. As the room fell silent, I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of official-looking documents. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me as I started handing them out to Jacob and Lisa. Here, I said sternly, pushing the papers across the table towards my son. These are your disinheriting papers, and next to them, the lawsuit we filed for compensation due to years of your deceit. I didn't miss the shock passing over Jacob's face as he fumbled with the documents, his confusion palpable. Beside him, Lisa looked like she was about to faint. There's more, I continued, my voice firm and unyielding. We're also selling the piece of land we gave you for your wedding. It's still in my name, thankfully. Before they could respond, Lisa's parents stepped forward, their expressions grim. They had their own set of documents, which they presented to their daughter with heavy hands. And here, her father said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal, are your disinheritance papers from us, Lisa. We're also demanding the return of all the funds you've misappropriated. Lisa's breakdown was immediate. There's no money left. We spent it all, she cried hysterically, her hands trembling. Jacob stood beside her, silent, his face a mask of shock and helplessness. As the room buzzed with the tension of broken trust and shattered relationships, I took a deep breath and delivered my final blow. We will also be seeking to deprive you both of parental rights, I announced, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. We've talked to Sarah, and she's expressed a desire to stay with us permanently. We plan to take full custody and eventually adopt her. Just as I thought the situation couldn't get more strained, Lisa, who had been sobbing uncontrollably, suddenly stopped. She looked up with a calculating expression and said, "What if we make a deal? Give us $500,000, and we'll let Sarah stay with you without any further trouble." The audacity of the offer left the room in stunned silence. George, who had been quietly supporting me throughout the ordeal, clenched his fists, visibly angry at the proposition. Lisa's parents were the first to break the silence. Her father, his face red with a mix of shame and anger, spoke loudly. "To think we raised someone who would sell her own child. We disown you, Lisa." The social workers stepped in then, detailing the next steps for transferring guardianship legally and ethically, without any exchange of money. Lisa and Jacob didn't argue much after that. It seemed the fight had gone out of them. As we walked out, I felt a mix of sadness for the family my son and his wife had become and resolve for the fight ahead. We were determined to do whatever it took to protect Sarah and give her the loving, stable home she deserved, free from the greed that had tainted her young life. With the courthouse battles behind us and the dust finally settling, George and I found ourselves stepping into a new chapter, one we hadn't anticipated but were determined to navigate with all the love we had. We were officially Sarah's guardians, and while the path to get here was riddled with heartache, the outcome was a relief. One quiet evening, as we sat on the porch watching Sarah chase fireflies in the yard, George broke the comfortable silence. "You think we did the right thing, Evie?" I looked at him, seeing the years of worry etched in his features, softened now by a smile as he watched Sarah. "Yes, George. We did what we had to do. For her." Sarah came bounding up the steps, her jar filled with glowing lights. "Look, Grandma, look what I caught." I laughed, taking the jar and peering inside. "They're beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you." She beamed, pleased with the praise, then turned to George. "Grandpa, can we let them go now? I think they want to fly." "Sure thing, kiddo." George stood, stretching his legs, and followed her down the steps to release the fireflies back into the evening sky. Later that week, I sat down with Sarah to talk about the upcoming school year. "You excited to start at your new school?" I asked, spreading out some of the new supplies we'd picked up together. She nodded, her expression serious. "Yeah, but I'm a bit scared. What if the other kids don't like me?" I reached over, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You just be yourself. They're gonna love you just as much as we do." Sarah smiled, a bit reassured, then her expression turned thoughtful. "Grandma, do you think Mom and Dad are okay?" "I think they're learning a lot right now, sweetheart. Just like we all are. But remember, Grandpa and I are here for you, always." As fall rolled in and Sarah settled into her new routine, George and I attended school events, helped with homework, and built a new rhythm around our granddaughter's needs. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, George raised his glass in a small toast. To new beginnings, and to family. The ones we're born into, and the ones we make along the way. I raised my glass to his, our eyes meeting over the table. To family, I echoed. Sarah, not one to be left out, raised her milk glass, with a giggle. To family. The laughter that followed was light and genuine, filling the room with warmth.